Tomorrow, the 2026 World Cup begins. In less than 24 hours, the Azteca in Mexico City will host the opening match between Mexico and South Africa. 83,000 people in a stadium where Pelé and Maradona both made history. And the tournament that has been the subject of more controversy, more debate, and more genuine institutional turbulence than any in the competition's modern era will finally have to answer the question that has been hanging over it for months. Can the football overcome everything surrounding it? That question will have to wait until tomorrow, because today, the 9th of June, 2026, the final day before the World Cup begins, the off-field story produced a sequence of developments that are, taken together, the most concentrated and dramatic single day of news in the entire build-up to this tournament. A World Cup referee denied entry to the United States and removed from the officiating roster entirely. His historic moment as the first Somali official at a World Cup, gone before a single match was played. Iran's Football Federation, claiming that FIFA revoked its entire ticket allocation for its 3 group stage matches, leaving the federation unable to offer a single seat to its supporters. One of England's most respected football voices posting publicly that this is a World Cup of chaos, and threading through all of it, the continuing story of Nigeria, Africa's self-described biggest football nation, watching a World Cup open without them for the second consecutive time, with the voice of their greatest captain still ringing in the ears of everyone responsible. There is also, in a completely different register, the story of Marcelo Bielsa and Uruguay, because not every thread in today's football picture is one of institutional failure and human cost. Some of it is simply about football being extraordinary. And Bielsa taking Uruguay to a World Cup is, for anyone who loves the game, exactly that. Let's go through all of it, starting with the story that broke this morning and had Ian Wright reaching for his phone. Omar Abdulkader Artan is 34 years old. He is Somali. He has worked his way through the ranks of African football, officiating to the point where he was selected as one of 52 referees for the 2026 World Cup. That selection was, by every measure, a historic one. He would have been the first referee from Somalia ever to officiate at a men's World Cup. Not just a personal achievement, but a moment of genuine significance for a country that has faced extraordinary difficulty and that has a football community that deserve that pride. Artan is not a figure on the fringes of African officiating. He has been recognized as the best referee on the continent. He has managed the highest level matches in African competition. His selection for the World Cup was not a symbolic gesture. It was a merit-based appointment by the sport's global governing body, and it reflected years of consistent, high-quality work on the field. Last weekend, Artan arrived at Miami International Airport. He carried a diplomatic passport issued by the Somali embassy. He had a valid 3-month multiple-entry visa that had been issued to him in Nairobi. He had been through FIFA's accreditation process. He had been selected and confirmed as part of the officiating roster. At Miami Airport, he was subjected to what Customs and Border Protection described as additional inspection, a routine part of the process when officers need to verify information or determine admissibility. That inspection lasted 11 hours. He was questioned about Al-Shabaab, the militant organization operating in the Horn of Africa. The Trump administration would later claim that Artan was denied entry because he posed a security threat, citing alleged links to suspected terrorists. The Somali government categorically rejected those claims. Somalia's Ministry of Youth and Sports stated he had a valid visa. No supporting evidence for the security threat allegation was made public. Following the inspection, he was determined to be inadmissible due to vetting concerns. He was denied entry. He was put on a flight home. Somalia is one of the countries subject to a complete travel ban implemented by the United States government. That ban was in place long before this World Cup was awarded to this group of host nations. The question of how a Somali official could be selected to referee a tournament being held inside a country that bars Somali nationals from entering was never publicly answered before the tournament began. The answer arrived at Miami Airport on a Saturday after 11 hours in the form of a denial and a flight home. FIFA confirmed what had happened in a statement that was, even by the standards of institutional language, remarkable in its brevity and its deflection. It confirmed that Artan would be unable to train and officiate at the 2026 World Cup after being denied entry. It confirmed that it is not involved in host country immigration processes. It confirmed that a host government ultimately determines who receives a visa and who is admitted. And it confirmed that the decision will not be changed. There was no expression of regret. There was no acknowledgement of what was lost. There was no commitment to ensuring this situation does not repeat itself. There was a brief, careful statement that placed responsibility elsewhere and moved on. Artan himself responded with a dignity that made the whole episode even more painful to follow. He said he was in a positive mood and focused on the next challenges in his refereeing career. He thanked FIFA and the Continental Governing Body for their support. He said he promised to keep his refereeing levels up as he concentrates on the future. A man who had worked his entire career toward a single defining moment. A moment taken from him at an airport after a day-long interrogation, responding with composure and grace that the institutions around him did not match. When he landed back in Mogadishu, he was given a hero's welcome. His country recognized what the process had failed to. The people at the airport understood what the statement did not say. Many observers, including prominent journalists and football commentators, described what happened as racism, pointing to the specific profile of the official targeted, the nature of the questioning he endured, and the broader pattern of non-white travelers from certain countries facing heightened scrutiny at American entry points during this tournament's build-up. The Trump administration's characterization of a decorated international referee as a security threat, without publicly released evidence, deepened that concern. Ian Wright found out and did what Ian Wright does. He spoke on his Instagram to his millions of followers in a video that was shared hundreds of thousands of times within hours. He said he had just read that the Somali referee had been denied entry. Every few hours, he said, it's another story. Fans denied, players denied, officials denied, journalists denied, now referees. He said he was laughing, but it wasn't funny. It actually wasn't funny. He said something had to be said. He talked about the expensive tickets, the most expensive ever sold for a World Cup, the expensive accommodation, the transport costs. He asked directly whether this is how the hosts behave for the greatest tournament in the world, whether this is the spirit of football. He said he felt most for the American fans who are desperate for this, who have been waiting for this, and who must be embarrassed. He called it a World Cup of chaos. Those are not the words of someone searching for controversy. They are the words of a man who has spent his life in football, who knows what the competition is supposed to represent, who was at the time preparing to work as a pundit covering the tournament itself, and who looked at the sequence of events surrounding it and reached a conclusion he felt compelled to say out loud. Every few hours, another story. He was right, because within hours of the referee's story breaking, a second story arrived that was even more extraordinary in its implications. Iran's Football Federation issued a statement claiming that FIFA had revoked its entire ticket allocation for its 3 group stage matches in the United States. Every federation at a World Cup is entitled to receive and distribute 8% of stadium capacity for each of its matches. For Iran, playing at a 70,000-seat stadium against New Zealand on the 15th of June, then Belgium on the 21st, then Egypt in Seattle on the 26th, that allocation amounts to several thousand tickets per game. Those tickets are typically distributed to the federation's most loyal supporters, the fans who follow their team home and away, who have attended qualifiers, who have invested years of commitment to their national team. The federation said in its statement that in an unexpected move, the allocation granted to it had been withdrawn. That under the current circumstances, it was unable to offer even a single ticket to national team supporters. Not a reduced allocation, not a partial withdrawal, not one ticket. The federation cannot offer its supporters a single seat to watch their team at a World Cup they qualified for. Iran's supporters had already been subject to a travel ban, making it impossible for most fans inside Iran to attend even if they had tickets. The allocation, when it was originally distributed, went primarily to Iranians in the diaspora, including those already living in the United States who were not subject to the ban and who could have attended the matches. Some of those people had purchased tickets. Some had already made travel plans. What happened to those purchases in the wake of the claimed revocation remained unclear as of this script's writing. FIFA did not immediately respond to the Federation's claims with a public statement confirming or denying the revocation. That silence, in the context of what was being alleged, was itself significant. Iran's players had arrived in Tijuana on Sunday. Fans waved to them as they entered their training base. Federation officials have been denied visas to enter the United States. The team crosses the border on match days and returns to Mexico each night. And now, the Federation claims the tickets that would have been distributed to their supporters have been taken back. Think about the cumulative picture of Iran's experience at this World Cup. The sports minister said under no circumstances could they participate. A diplomatic intervention from Mexico's president made participation possible. The Federation boycotted the draw ceremony in Washington. Some officials cannot get visas. The team's base is in Tijuana, and they commute to their matches across an international border. And now, the Federation claims their entire supporter ticket allocation has been revoked days before their first game. That is not a story about one decision or one policy. That is a story about a qualified World Cup nation navigating conditions that no other team in the competition's history has been asked to manage. A nation whose players have prepared for the biggest stage in football while sleeping in another country, whose officials cannot enter the venues where their team competes, and whose supporters cannot obtain a single official ticket to watch them play. Now, shift the picture entirely, because alongside these stories of institutional failure and individual loss, today also carried a different kind of football news, the kind that reminds you why you love the sport in the first place. Marcelo Bielsa is taking Uruguay to the World Cup, El Loco. The most obsessive, most meticulous, most eccentric tactical mind the game has produced in the past 3 decades. The man who watched so much football footage that opposing clubs reportedly built special rooms to accommodate his film sessions, who once spent an entire pre-match night sleeping in the technical area of an empty stadium to understand the sightlines from the bench, who managed Argentina, Chile, Athletic Bilbao, and Marseille with an intensity that players described universally as simultaneously terrifying and life-changing. He took over Uruguay's national team and guided them through qualification. The ride was not smooth. There were moments of doubt. There were performances that raised questions about whether his approach could translate to a national team environment where he has less time with players than at a club. But he got them there. Uruguay arrived at this World Cup in Group H alongside Mexico, South Africa, and the Czech Republic, the opening group, the one that kicks everything off. A fascinating tactical contest between Bielsa's organized, intense pressing football and Javier Aguirre's Mexico, in the country that has adopted Aguirre as one of their own, played out in front of the full capacity at the Azteca. Whatever else surrounds this tournament, that game alone was worth paying attention to. Bielsa's Uruguay squad carries Darwin Núñez, Federico Valverde, Rodrigo Bentancur, players of genuine European-level quality who have been tested repeatedly in the highest club competitions. And they carry the particular spirit that Uruguayan football has always brought to World Cups, the sense that they represent a country too small to have any right to be feared and too proud to let that stop them. They have 2 World Cup titles. They won the first one in 1930. They have always punched above their weight, and they have always known it. No one knows exactly what Bielsa is going to do. That unpredictability is itself a joy. His tactical systems have been analyzed and discussed for decades, and yet his specific preparations for individual opponents remain genuinely difficult to predict. In a tournament surrounded by institutional noise, the presence of Marcelo Bielsa at a World Cup is a reminder that this competition also belongs to the genuinely extraordinary, to the coaches who approach the game as a problem so complex and so beautiful that a lifetime of obsessive study is the only appropriate response. And then there is Nigeria, not at this World Cup for the second consecutive time. Africa's self-described biggest football nation watching the tournament open without them, with a diaspora of talent playing for other nations. Michael Olise for France, Manuel Akanji for Switzerland, Jamal Musiala for Germany. Players born to Nigerian parents or with Nigerian heritage representing some of the strongest squads in the competition. The talent is there. It always has been. It just is not wearing green. Nigeria's own team lost on penalties to the Democratic Republic of Congo in the qualification playoff final in Rabat, a 4-3 shootout loss in heavy rain that ended one of the most chaotic qualification campaigns in Super Eagles history. 4 different coaches during the cycle. A penalty loss to Ghana in the previous qualification campaign. And now, this. Back-to-back absences from the World Cup for the first time since 1994. For a football nation of Nigeria's size and talent depth, that is not just disappointing, it is a structural failure. John Obi Mikel did not stay silent. He never does when Nigerian football fails the people who love it. On his podcast and in public appearances on British sports radio, he said what needed to be said. He called it a failure. He called it a disaster. He said those words carefully, and he meant them. He said football is the one thing that holds Nigeria together, the one thing that cuts across religion and tribe and the economic difficulty of daily life. Whether you are Hausa or Yoruba or Igbo, Muslim or Christian, when Nigeria plays, everyone watches, everyone supports, everyone feels joy together. And for the second time in a row, that joy had been taken from the people by an administration he described as failing at every level. He said the entire board of the Nigeria Football Federation should resign, not as a populist statement, as a considered position from someone who played at 2 World Cups, who understands what the preparation and management of a national team actually requires, and who watched his country fail to qualify with one of Africa's deepest talent pools. He said even winning the Africa Cup of Nations would not remove the pain of missing a World Cup. He said Nigeria belongs on the biggest stage and that nothing else comes close. The contrast at the heart of this is worth sitting with for a moment. France has Michael Olise. Germany has Jamal Musiala. Switzerland has Manuel Akanji. These are players whose Nigerian heritage is visible in the composition of some of the most powerful squads at this tournament, and the team that represents Nigeria itself is at home. That is not just the story of a qualification failure. It is the story of an institution that has squandered something irreplaceable and a country of over 200 million football fans who are watching someone else's team include their sons and grandsons while their own flag is not on the field. What connects all 4 of these stories, Artan's denial at Miami Airport, Iran's revoked ticket allocation, Bielsa's Uruguay, and Nigeria's absence, is that they all reveal, in different ways, something essential about what the World Cup is supposed to be and what it has actually become. The tournament that was designed to represent football's universality has opened its doors to 48 nations and simultaneously closed them to a Somali referee traveling on a diplomatic passport and carrying a valid visa. It has revoked a qualified nation's supporter ticket allocation days before their first match. It has produced a coaching story in Bielsa that is pure football joy, completely untouched by institutional noise. And it has left the continent's most populous football nation watching from home, their captain asking the same question that Nigeria's supporters are asking. How did this happen again? Ian Wright's phrase, World Cup of Chaos, will follow this tournament. It is not an unfair description of the 9th of June alone. It captures something about the accumulated experience of following this competition's preparation over the past several months. Travel bans applied to World Cup officials. Ticket allocations revoked for qualified nations. Journalists denied entry. Fans turned away. The questions that were raised when this World Cup was awarded to its current set of hosts are not abstract questions anymore. They are playing out in real time, in airport terminals and federation statements and Instagram videos posted by men who have given their lives to football and who feel the need to speak. But chaos is not the whole story. Because tomorrow, the Azteca opens. Because Bielsa sits in a technical area somewhere in North America, probably having not slept. Probably reviewing footage of South Africa that no one else thought to watch. Because the players of 48 nations, including Iran's players in Tijuana, who have managed more adversity in their preparation than any squad in World Cup history, are ready. The football is ready. And here's the thing about football that this tournament, for all its institutional failures, cannot change. When it starts, it starts. The moments arrive regardless. They are indifferent to revoked ticket allocations and referees denied at airports and federation. Statements and political decisions made in offices that have nothing to do with the game. They happen because players of genuine quality, under maximum pressure, on the biggest stage, produce things that nobody planned and nobody could have scripted. A finish, a save, a moment that the people who witness it carry with them for the rest of their lives. That is what begins tomorrow, and that is what will still be true on the 19th of July when this tournament ends, whatever happens between now and then.